the elections in the Osun State and the Ekiti State are coming up in June and July sequentially. And these are very contentious elections that we owe a duty that the resources spent by INEC would not be mad or impugned by AI, social media misuse. So we need to sanitize the people and create an awareness that it's not just your civic responsibility, it's also a you not to go to jail card. Because if the government is going to start a clampdown on all these things, a lot of people would just be railroading themselves to jail. Whatever you do on the internet is always the internet never forgets. It can always be traced back to you. So even if you delete it, it can be traced back. And the courts have now said that WhatsApp messages online are evidence before the court, which can be used against or for you.
So just as we are calling out on netizens to be responsible users of
Yes.
the internet, don't you think the people in position who are supposed to be custodian of this are also should also be called out? Because there's a rapid adaptation of digital platforms, but there is a gap between this adaptation and cybercrime, security, enlightenment, and all of those. So because so many people are doing things they do not regard as cybercrime. You know, before we started this conversation, I talked to you about the use of AI just to make jokes about politicians mimicking. But you also mentioned that that is also a cybercrime.
Yes,
but a larger number of
Yes.
citizens
We're
do
talking
that.
about deepfake, cloning people's voices. These are definitely crimes. It's provided for under the law. Because at the end of the day, what you rightly said, this deepfake can distort voter perception through deepfake content, manipulate political narratives via automated misinformation, fabricate digital evidence for election petitions, undermine judicial confidence in the electoral adjudication. Unchecked, these threats could erode public trust and destabilize democratic legitimacy. Now, we know how the Nigerian system is right now. A lot of people are talking about governance and how the electorate are not being considered.
Yeah.
But of course, it comes with responsibilities. The electorate owe it a duty to conduct themselves properly towards elections. Because you see, if you think that that phone you have in your hand, you can use it anyhow, mischievously, as a joke, it comes with criminal liability. Because whatever you send would definitely affect voter perception. Like that person in Ekiti who did that thing. Of course, it was meant as either as a joke, but then you look at the mens rea or the actus rea. The intent and the consequences of that intent. So what we're doing right now, what we're trying to sanitize people, is the legal consequences of the dangers and of misuse of AI on social media platforms during elections, which might impugn the integrity of the electoral process. As I said earlier, you have Section 22 on cyber stalking and cyberbullying, fake news, false messages. You have Section 24 on identity theft. You also have the Electoral Act itself, which has lofty provisions. There are a lot of criticism regarding the Electoral Act 2026, but I want to restrict it to the one that concerns the online conversation.
You agree with me as a lawyer that in Nigeria, creation of laws are not actually our problem, but the implementations of law. So if these laws are actually implemented over time, don't you think it will be recognized, widely recognized by people, and be on the tongue of people, and people will really know that the things they do on social media are actually wrong for their own?
Yes, that is why we're calling on INEC, the Nigerian Police Force, and the relevant organizations to conduct sensitization and awareness, because creating a law or enacting a law is one thing. Creating an awareness and letting people be aware and educating them about the importance of actually obeying that law and the dangers of not obeying it, like the sanctions of not obeying it, they are very, very important. As I was saying, the Electoral Act, as I was saying before, has issues. Section 93 talks about provision of hate speech and incitement. Section 95 talks about conduct of political campaigns. Section 114 talks about bribery and conspiracy. Section 62 and 71 talks about falsification of election result. INEC forms EC8, and then you also have the IREV, the BVAS. These are things that can be hacked. And a lot of people do it mischievously without taking into cognizance the provisions of the law. and the sanctions of the law that it carries with it. You talk about 7 million naira fine, or a jail term of about 3 years, or both in most cases if the offense is so severe. So I know that INEC is going to conduct a lot of sensitization, because this problem is a clear and present danger. What we're talking about is cybersecurity. Even in America and all the European Union's developed countries, they have this problem whereby, for example, in EU and in the UK, I'm aware that they involve the platforms and ensure that the platforms censor political messages during elections so as not to mar the integrity of the process. So there's a need for INEC to engage with stakeholders, Meta, TikTok, etc., to ensure that they conduct themselves properly. Because we have issues of insecurity, etc. We cannot allow mischief makers and ignorance of the law to use the social media internet platforms as a means to create chaos during the elections. Because
So for these laws, I'm sure they must have been created for a long time ago.
no, okay.
So do you think they are strong enough for modern cyber crimes?
Of course, the Cybercrime Prohibition Prevention Act was enacted in 2015. So it's
But you know, cybercrime has been evolving since then.
yes, it's a dynamic thing. The law is dynamic and it changes to take cognizance of the changes in the society. So what you're saying is that presently, if you read the Cybercrime Act, it actually anticipates all what is going on right now. But the problem is awareness has not been created. So a lot of people ignorantly commit a lot of offenses ignorantly. And because of the newness of these offenses, the police is yet to start the prosecution. But gradually, because of the increase and the dynamic trends in the society, definitely there's going to be an increase in prosecution by the police and the relevant agencies. Because you see, what we're going to witness right now is an upsurge in people being sent to jail for offenses which ordinarily, had they known, they would not commit.
Yes.
Because a lot of people mischievously have this idea, and repeating it, that the social media space is a lawless space. It is not a lawless
Talking
space.
about social media being a lawless space, you know, you cannot move cybercrime away from the youth.
Yes.
The people who are largely use of, you know, this cyberspace are the youth.
Yes.
So don't you think they see it as a platform where they are able to speak or express themselves? Because, you know, we live in a country where it's actually hard for you to come out boldly to call out on leaders or stuff. So they go on this cyberspace to call out their leader. Some go anonymously. So what would you say about that? Because if you're looking at cybercrime, we should also look at the issues in the country that are enabling cybercrime. So what would you say?
No, basically, as I said, it's an internet age. From the jet age to an internet, it's a technological age. For example, if you give a phone to a 2-year-old, the way he understands the dynamics of that phone and the technology involved is different from somebody who is probably 40, 50, who would have difficulty in accessing the various options on the phone. So the issue right now is let them be aware. There's a need for the youth to be aware. It's not a free space like that. It's not. No. For example, a lot of people who do cybercrime, who commit Yahoo, or we call them Yahoo boys, they have this perception that once they get the money, there are no consequences. It is now that EFCC, under the chairmanship of the new chairman, has now intensified the campaign against the people who commit Yahoo by letting them know that there are consequences. For example, once you are nabbed and you're investigated and you're convicted, you become an ex-convict. And being an ex-convict, you cannot hold public office, you cannot work in a bank.
What makes cybercrime case more complex than traditional crimes?
Now, what makes cybercrime more complex regards evidence. Prior to this, we had Section 84 that allows for documentary evidential evidence, electronic evidence. Now, that has been expanded to now accept WhatsApp messages, TikTok messages, and online messages as proof during judicial proceedings. Now, prior to this time, it was a novel thing, this whole online thing. But now, the amendment and everything has now adopted it, whereby you cannot excuse yourself. Once there's evidence, and evidence is taken before the court, pursuant to Section 84, and all the enabling laws, you will stand trial. And a criminal trial will look at the actus rea and the mens rea. These are the salient ingredients. And at the end of the day, if convicted, the offenses that provide for the various consequences, either fine or jail term, or both in most severe cases. What we're trying to say right now is to create an awareness. Let us start singing the song that tell your child, tell your ward, and even yourself, before you click, think, verify before you amplify. You see, it's not every news, breaking news that comes, you have to share. Before you share, think. Before you share, verify that information. Confirm, is it true? Because conspiracy starts from where you share, you now become culpable.
Yes.
And then if, for example, as a result of that thing you shared, there was a death or violence that erupted, you become culpable and it will be traced back to you.
So a final question before we move to the other segments of the program. What urgent reform, because this seems like an urgent issue right now. So what urgent reform would you prescribe for a cybercrime in Nigeria?
No, the urgent thing is create the awareness of the enabling laws. As I said, the relevant laws. The Cybercrime Prohibition Prevention Act 2015 is very much there. It has been there since 2015. And each section is very relevant to the day-to-day activity of every person that operates on online media platforms regarding identity theft, forgery, cyber stalking, sending false messages. You know, a lot of people think that by that impersonating someone's voice or one's online identity profile, it's an innocent. It's not. It's not an innocent thing. And the conduct comes with penalties. Section 22 talks about cyber stalking, cyber bullying. Section 24 talks about identity theft. You also have section 14 that talks about forgery. So you see, these laws are there. And then you also have the criminal code, section 419, that's obtaining money under false pretense, which is very common with online operators to do somebody. These are consequences. And at the end of the day, you are liable for it. Because there's a digital trail. Just follow the digital trail. The internet never forgets. Whatever you delete can be recovered, even on your WhatsApp message. There are technologies that can bring up messages as far back as 4 or 5 years. So it's not as if once you've deleted it off your system, it's gone. It's not gone. It's still there. And once it is there, it can be traced back to you. And once it's traced back to you, you'll be held liable for it, criminally liable, and also civil liable if there's a civil infraction on it. What I'm trying to say right now is we need to create that awareness. We need to alert the people of the consequences, especially during elections. We have Ekiti State election in June. We have Osun State election in July. Let us develop responsible online conduct, digital conduct, that ensures we do not do anything online that will send us to jail offline.
So thank you so much, Olu Dr. Wright. We'll be moving on to the next segment, and this is called Rapid Fire segment, where you are just given the opportunity to pick one answer, just one word. I'll be asking you a question, and you'll be picking one word. Cybercrime or traditional crime?
Well,
which is more dangerous today? One word.
Okay.
So you have to pick one.
Cybercrime.
Okay. So hackers, criminals, or misunderstood tech experts?
Criminals.
Really?
Yes, they're not misunderstood. Because the law talks about the intent. The intent makes their actions criminal. They're not misunderstood. When you see somebody is misunderstood, you're trying to deal with the issue with levity. You're trying to trivialize the conduct of the person and the social responsibility of that individual.
So let's move on to the next question. Is Nigeria winning or losing the fight against cybercrime?
We're not losing the fight. The Nigerian state, the Nigerian populace are very dynamic and we're very resilient. The issue right now is that cybercrime is a bit new.
Stronger laws or better enforcement?
Both. You said the laws are there already. It's enforcement. Enforcement.
Okay.
Enforcement, because the laws are there already.
Okay, so social media, tool for progress or gateway to cybercrime?
Tools for progress.
Can cybercrime ever be fully eliminated?
No, it cannot.
Education or punishment, which is the better deterrent? Are financial institutions doing enough to protect users?
They're trying their best.
Should cybercrime offenders face stricter penalties than physical crimes?
No, I don't agree. Okay.
One word to describe the future of cybercrime in Nigeria.
Well, the future of cybercrime in Nigeria is very dangerous. It's a clear and present danger.
One word.
Well, the future of cybercrime in Nigeria is a clear and present danger. That's all I can say.
All right. Thank you so much,
And it's
Barrister
evolving.
Mimo. Thank you so much for having this conversation with us. Thank you so much for this insightful perspective, just like I've said. What is clear from this conversation is that cybercrime is no longer a future threat. It is a present reality demanding urgent attention, stronger laws, and collective responsibility. As our society becomes more digital, the need for awareness, regulation, and enforcement becomes even more critical. And on that note, we conclude today's edition of Spotlight on Stay Informed, Stay Secure, and Stay Connected. My name is Zainab Ibrahim.